Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's presentation of the NERC webinar series entitled Increasing Sustainable Purchasing. My name is Eric Halverson, and I'm the Program Coordinator for the College and University Recycling Coalition, and I'll be your moderator for today. For those of you not familiar with NERC, the College and University Recycling Coalition is a member-based organization that works to grow collegiate recycling and waste reduction efforts by fostering technical information exchange and networking opportunities between the staff and student leaders implementing programs on college and university campuses. Today's program is part of our free NERC webinar series, which is designed to highlight innovative campus programs and provide trends and perspectives on a broad range of operational and educational topics related to collegiate recycling and sustainable materials management. Today's program is the first webinar in our 2021 series, so welcome everyone. I want to thank our partner, NERC, the Northeast Recycling Council, for the logistical support of the presentation today and agreeing to speak with all of you. I also want to recognize today's webinar sponsor, Clean River Recycling Solutions, for their support of NERC and today's program. There will be more about Clean River following the presentations, so stick around for that. We have a few housekeeping notes to go over. If you have problems with your audio or video during the webinar, you can reach a live technician by calling GoToWebinar's customer support line at 800-263-6317. To avoid background noise, we've also placed all but our panelists' lines on mute. So you can submit questions, however, at any time by using the plus symbol where it says questions. So write us a note there and we will read as many as possible to our presenters today and hope to get those conversations going. Also, copies of today's presentation slides will be available to download and a recording available to stream within the next day or so from the NERC website, www.curc3r.org. To start off the new year with NERC, many members wanted to have a program dedicated to upstream waste reduction and what purchasing sustainably looks like. Now, we are happy today to host two presentations about key strategies to any successful purchasing policy and how to continually improve upon your policies while using that purchasing power for good. We're beginning today with a presentation from Lynn Rubinstein, Executive Director of the Northeast Recycling Council. Next, we'll hear from a pair of professionals from the University of Dayton, Leah Ceperley, Sustainability Planning and Evaluation Manager with the University of Dayton in Facilities Management, and Sarah Harrison, Executive Director of Procurement and Payable Services with the University of Dayton. Lynn Rubinstein has been the Executive Director of the Northeast Recycling Council for more than 20 years. Her background is in solid and hazardous waste management, land use and wetland conservation, and law. So welcome, Lynn.
Great, thank you. So I haven't seen a little "you're a presenter" thingy yet. Well, now I see it. Let's see. What do we want to show? Well, I am delighted to have this opportunity to be with you this afternoon. And let me say that I am planning on you guys asking a lot of questions. So that's the pressure is on. And Eric, quite candidly, I don't care if you interrupt me with questions or we wait till the end, but the pressure's on the audience to ask questions. So, and I'm really pleased about this. I had been working with Eric for quite a while to create an opportunity to do this, and I'm delighted that we're here today, and by such a strong registration response, which is also wonderful. So I am the Executive Director of the Northeast Recycling Council, as Eric said. I'm also the Program Manager for the Government Recycling Demand Champions program. This is a program that is offered in companion with the, I got a weirdo message on my screen, with the Association of Plastic Recyclers, APR, but we are the lead. And it is a free incentive program to get government and educational institutions to increase their purchasing of products with post-consumer resin. A lot of P's in that sentence. Of course, NERC supports buying all products with post-consumer content, no matter what, whether it's paper or metal, as well as plastic. But because of the partnership with the Association of Plastic Recyclers, APR, this program is focused on plastic. So our goals are to create and stimulate domestic markets for recyclable plastics and thereby support a sustainable plastic recycling industry. Kind of highfalutin, but that's what we're trying to accomplish. So quick background, APR, Association of Plastic Recyclers, has had a program for, I think, 5 years now called the Recycling Demand Champion Program. And it works only with the private sector. And they work, it's also a voluntary program to drive the purchasing of products with post-consumer resin by the private sector, to increase the offering of products with post-consumer resin, and to increase the production of post-consumer resin. Thanks to the change in our opportunity to export plastics, we were able to convince them that really we need to really up the ante on purchasing. If we just have the private sector doing this stuff, their public, their consumers are not actively engaging, and they're not going to support those initiatives forever. So we were able to launch the Government Recycling Demand Champions Program. Yes, it should education. You guys are educational, so let's focus on and educational. With miraculously lousy timing, we actually launched this 2 weeks after the pandemic started. And I am well aware that purchasing officials have had quite a few things on their plate. So hoping to be able to raise the profile, and as people maybe have a little more time and attention, they'll be able to be focusing on these. So the program is open to educational institutions of any ilk. I don't know why this says public sector. Yes, public sector, that's right. So public and private, schools, colleges, and universities. So I imagine you guys are familiar with this, but it's important. Closing the loop. Putting stuff in your recycling bin accomplishes nothing. You might as well be throwing it out, quite candidly, unless somebody wants it, unless somebody is buying the material. And the only reason they're going to buy that material is if there's demand for it. And demand comes from people wanting to buy products with post-consumer content. So what you do is essential to support a healthy and financially sustainable recycling industry. It impacts the cost to offer residential recycling program, and I imagine educational institution recycling as well. If there's no value, meaning to the MRF, for what you're putting in, they charge more because they're losing money. But if there's value, if people want material that they are sending out, then the picture turns around. Of course, it's also very important to the jobs and tax base, and need I say, to the environment. Buying products with post-consumer content, almost always, there's some very minor exceptions, will result in significantly decreased greenhouse gas emissions. Now, you may have heard that there are record low prices for virgin resin. There's a lot of reasons for that, but that has made the essential nature of public demand for recycled content all the more important. Because from a purely business perspective, why would you use a resin that costs more? And that's what we're seeing now, that using post-consumer resin is simply more expensive than virgin because it has little to no value. There isn't enough of it, people aren't buying it, so they're paying a premium to get it, whereas virgin is incredibly cheap. So we need more purchasing to drive both a desire to use this stuff and to begin to create a little balance in the marketplace. So our program seeks to drive change through leadership, through government and educational institutions. So you may know that government and educational institutions are the biggest purchasers combined in the United States. You buy the most of anything. What you buy impacts the marketplace. It sends a signal to brands and to the industry, and it supports sustainability initiatives and goals of brands. It also is a way to show leadership to your students, to your professors, to the administration, that you are committed to this and it's a model for them. And many of your universities and colleges will have sustainability goals or sustainability commitments. And this is a very important way to contribute to achieving those. So the program is open to any educational institution, public and private schools, so down to elementary, colleges and universities, and any non-federal public sector entity. So we include tribal nations, state agencies, departments within a municipality or an agency, a municipality, county, solid waste districts, libraries, public utilities. This is not an exhaustive list, it's just sort of a sample list. And also state recycling organizations, which is a little bit of a disconnect there, but I'll speak about that a little bit more. So how do you participate? There are 3 ways to participate. One is a champion, and that means I'm already buying stuff with recycled content. I could do better. And so I sign up as a champion, and I agree to increase the purchase of products with post-consumer resin over the next year. So when confronted with a product that's plastic, you intentionally seek to purchase something with post-consumer content. The truth is that a lot of government entities, and certainly for some educational institutions, they don't know how to do this. They might think it's a great idea, but they honestly don't know how to do this, or who makes these decisions, or how do you change an institutional practice. So somebody like that would sign up as an advocate, which means that they like the idea, they don't know how to do it, and they're going to figure it out over the next 12 months. Now, by figure it out, we offer free technical assistance and support. So it's not just that they go wandering off into the wilderness. We are here to help them. And then the sort of off in a different direction, the state recycling organizations. So most of the United States have organizations within them, they're nonprofits, that are memberships organizations committed to buying, to recycling. And they're small nonprofits. They're not buying a lot of stuff, I can guarantee you there, but they have members. And so they can sign up as an advocate, expressing their support for this concept and for this program. And their job is to just help get the word out to their public and private sector members about either this program or the APR program for the private sector. So that's their role. And we do offer free technical assistance, support, and training. We have a directory of vendors and products that sell these products. You get a certificate of participation and recognition. So there are a number of products out there with post-consumer resin that you are buying, or somebody in your organization is buying. These are commonly purchased by educational institutions as well as government entities, and they are readily available with post-consumer resin. So ignore the asterisks. I should have cleaned those off. That was a relic from another presentation. So clothes and uniforms, flooring, that would be carpet and tiling, for example, indoor and outdoor furniture, office furniture, or outdoor picnic tables, landscaping products. That might mean things like planters or trim along a walkway, non-pressure drainage pipes. This would be for infrastructure improvements on the campus. So under roads, detention ponds, office supplies, outdoor lumber, so things like for decking or for stairs, any sort of plastic bag, meaning garbage bags, or if you have liners for recycling or composting, any sort of recycling container, desk side, roll off, the big totes, any sort of recycling container. Traffic control might be traffic cones or parking bumpers. And then the easiest one of all are electronics, computers, cell phones, printers, monitors. You would have to work pretty hard to be buying a product these days without recycled content in it. So these are things that are really seriously readily available. And quite candidly, your educational institution may already be buying things with recycled content, and either they know it or they don't know it. So what is this? So here is, I concede, not a great screenshot. We have a link from the Government Recycling Demand Champion website, which you of course will see the link for, to a directory, or it's a listing of products with post-consumer resin. So you get a hyperlink to the name of the company, the salesperson, phone and contact information, and what they're selling. Now, there are far fewer categories here than I mentioned. And that's because this is a resource under development. And so, for example, the other day I had somebody contact me and said, I want to buy safety vests with recycled content. And we didn't have anything about safety vests on this chart. I did some research. Quite candidly, it didn't take a lot of research. There are many companies that sell safety vests with post-consumer resin. And so that's something that's going to be added to the list. So it is an evolving resource. But it is there for anybody. You don't have to be a participant in the program. So inevitably, you're going to want to know, well, what's it going to cost? Because I can't go out there and tell somebody to spend more money. And we are told by basically everybody that sells products with post-consumer resin, with one exception, that the pricing will be the same. They'll be competitive. And why is that? Since I just went through that whole long song and a dance about how it's more expensive to use post-consumer resin, why? Why are they doing this? They're doing it because they have a business model where they're committed to it, because they have customer base who demand it, and they may be a company with their own sustainability goals. But again, unless somebody's supporting and endorsing their efforts by buying those products, it goes for naught. The one exception that I am actively aware of are plastic garbage bags in California with recycled content. It's a whole other conversation if you want, but that's the only product that I have consistently heard, you know what, it actually is more expensive, but it's in California. So let's hope that I have convinced you, intrigued you, whatever. So what do you do? So when you get this, Eric alluded earlier that you will have access to the presentation. So this will be a PDF, and these will be live hyperlinks. So you sign up as a champion or an advocate. I don't think you're going to sign up as a state recycling organization unless you happen to be work with one. And it's almost an embarrassingly simple Word document. It is a Word document. It's 2 sentences long. I like it. This is what I'm going to do. You sign it and give the date, and then email it to Lynn. If you are a champion, you will be asked to report annually on your purchasing activities as they relate to plastic products with post-consumer resin. And the reason is that you will then get a sustainability report that chronicles the environmental impacts of your purchasing behaviors. And it's an opportunity to get recognition for your program and activities. I mentioned lousy timing on getting going. So currently we have 3 champions. We have 3 advocates and 2 state recycling organizations. And you will notice that there are no educational institutions on this list. And I am sincerely hoping that one of you will become the first. I really want to get education represented here. The Government Recycling Demand Champion website has a lot of resources on it. And like the purchasing directory, the online purchasing directory, this is evolving. So if you say to me, I was looking for this, why isn't this there? It will get posted. We will either find it or create it and get it posted. We want this to be a useful tool for everybody, not just for people who participate. So we have the directory that I showed you before. We have examples of purchasing specifications. We have a basic fact sheet about how do you buy recycled We have a training webinar that's been recorded, and some basic step-by-step, what do you do? We have a list of the companies that certify post-consumer content. We have separate fact sheets about the different ways to participate and the commitment letters, as well as some other things. So here's my contact information. I do want to hear from you. Don't hesitate at any time. This is the URL for the Government Recycling Demand Champions website. It is housed within the NERC website, but this is how you get to it. And so with that, Eric, I sincerely hope that we've had some questions come in.
Absolutely. We've got a few for you here. And remember, everyone in the audience, if you have a question, please click on the plus sign next to the word question on the GoToWebinar dashboard, and you can type in and write to us. So the first one, is this program only available in the USA?
Yes.
Okay. Just wanted to get that one.
On the other hand, I say that very firmly. So if we have a Canadian educational institution, for example, who's interested, I take you. I have nothing against Canadian engagement. It just happened to have been originally focused on the United States, but I don't care. I would love to have you participate.
We have a couple questions here, people concerned about potential impacts of buying post-consumer resin products that might release things like microplastics into the environment. I don't know if you have done some research on that.
Well, I've had this question before. So no, I have not done any independent research, but I will share what I have learned and welcome a follow-up question. So these products, for example, the ones that I showed on that list, I'll go back up there. They're not fungible, right? You're not washing yourself with them. They're solid, stable objects. And it's my understanding that microplastics are at a greatest risk in consumer products like soap and shampoo or cleaning products, as well as in compostable plastics, where they are an issue, but not in a finished product. They're designed to stay intact, and so they would not be releasing microplastics. But I'm happy to, if I didn't answer the question, I welcome a follow-up.
All right, we have another question here. Do you have any examples of entities that have entered agreements with their local MRFs or MRFs or supplier to lower the cost of recycled content products?
So the MRF is a step in the middle. So I'm a university, and my campus-wide, we recycle, and the stuff gets collected, and it goes to a MRF. And then the MRF is processing it and marketing it. They're selling it. So the examples that I am aware of, which are not specific to an educational institution, are a cost or revenue sharing agreements. That if the value of what they are receiving exceeds X amount, they revenue share with you, or which is another form of revenue sharing. They decrease the cost of your sending them material. I have had people ask about, could I skip the MRF and market directly to somebody who's making these products? The example happened to have come up in the context of the non-pressure drainage pipes. So if non-pressure drainage pipes are made out of non-food grade number 2, HDPE. So things like laundry detergent bottles, so thick, colored, solid, not food containers. And so this guy said, well, I run a recycling program and I separate out my number 2s. Could I send them to you directly, skip the MRF, and then get a discounted price when I purchased pipes? And the response was, I would be happy to discuss that with you. So the guy didn't, and it was a manufacturer of drainage pipes. He didn't say go away. He at least said, I would be happy to discuss it with you. So those are the 2 aspects that I'm aware of.
All right. The next question is about the directory itself. Has has your organization considered on top of, I guess first details about the directory, is there a certain percentage of post-consumer recycled, resin that you have like set as a benchmark for your list?
That's required? No, it isn't there. You can find out from those contacts what the percentage for an individual product is. The how much recycled resin is in different products is a complicated reason. Why? So, for example, flooring or decking. That has structural requirements, right? It has to meet certain international safety requirements. So that board has to be totally solid, no risk of it falling apart. We have to be able to prove it through third-party verification. So they're going to be limited to the type of recycled content that they can put in, because they certainly don't want something in there that's secretly biodegradable. The thing's going to fall apart. So they have very high specifications. Something like plastic bags, we're talking pretty high tolerance for crap. So they will be a higher, they could be a higher percentage of recycled content. The non-pressure drainage pipes, they're 100%. When you get the ones with recycled content, they're 100% post-consumer. So it depends on the application and the type of resin that's involved.
But
so is that a great non-answer?
Yeah. I saw on the list there was a tool for third-party verification. Is that
yes.
right?
Yeah. It's not a tool. It's there are companies that do third-party certification of post-consumer resin. I think there's 5 of them right now. So these right now, I want to say that these companies are not certifying a product. They're certifying a source. So if I make shirts with post-consumer resin, I would get certified that the resin I'm buying, that I put into those shirts, meets my post-consumer resin requirement, 100% or 10% or whatever I happen to need. There are 2 certifications actively under development that I frankly expect both of which will be launched this year, that will be going to the actual products themselves, getting the product itself certified, not just its resin source. It's an area of great interest.
Yeah, I think we have that interest here today. So, we're at the end of the question time for you, Lynn, and we're going to move on to our next presentation.
Great. So let me just say thank you for your questions. Thank you for having me here. Contact me. Join. Thank you, Eric.
Yeah, and Lynn will be hopefully answering questions in the dashboard too for ones that didn't get to.
Yep.
All right. Welcome, Sarah and Leah. I'm just going to pull up my slides and introduce you before you get started. All right. Our next presentation of the day, I'm going to welcome this team from the University of Dayton. Leah Ceperley is the Sustainability Planning and Evaluation Manager with Facilities Management at the University of Dayton. She partners with students, faculty, and staff across the campuses to develop and meet sustainability goals, inspire new initiatives, and find solutions to campus sustainability challenges. Sarah Harrison is the Executive Director of Procurement and Payable Services at the University of Dayton. Sarah is responsible for the management of strategic initiatives related to sourcing, accounts payable, and printing services. In addition, she co-chairs the Fair, Ethical, Sustainable Sourcing Committee, which includes updates to campus leaders regarding the University of Dayton's Procurement for the Common Good scorecard and action plans. All right, welcome to the University of Dayton. Now, would you like me to share your presentation from my screen?
That would be fine. Yeah, that would be great.
You can just tell me when to move along.
Okay. All right, great. Well, we're happy to be here.
So again, my name is Leah Ceperley, and we were asked to speak today on sort of how we are continually improving our sustainability purchasing and how we encourage that participation across campus. And Sarah and I were talking and thinking about how we do this. And for us, it really comes down to our relationship building culture on campus. So that might not be as mechanistic of an answer as maybe some of you would like to hear, but we think it's a very powerful tool. So we wanted to share a little bit about that today before going into some of the more concrete steps that we've taken over the last several years. So yeah, next slide. And Sarah and I were asked to join this presentation today, but we're really part of an integrated team. And two key players on that team are Steve Kindig, who is also in facilities management, and he's the executive director of energy utilization and environmental sustainability. And then Tony Talbot, who is a director of advocacy for the Human Rights Center here at University of Dayton. And between the four of us and several others, which we'll introduce later on, we have a very collaborative working relationship that covers from the operations side, including the procurement side, to the human rights, social justice side, to the sustainability, environmental sustainability side. Next slide. So for those of you who don't know, the University of Dayton is a mid-sized research university in a mid-sized town in the Midwest. So we're in the southwest corner of Ohio with about just shy of 2,500 graduate students and approaching 10,000 undergraduate students. We're a fairly urban campus, although you can see from the image where there is kind of a suburban aspect surrounding our campus. Next slide. And to start us off on thinking about kind of what drives our sustainable purchasing behavior, and the University of Dayton is a Catholic university, and one of our mottos is learn, lead, serve, and that is really driven a lot of how we approach our work, and it especially is how we form our students. We're a diverse community committed to the Marianist tradition, to educating the whole person, to linking learning and scholarship with leadership and service. So although it is a very nice words, but everyone on campus lives out these words as well. So it really has seeped into our culture, and not just on the student, the academic side, but throughout the operations and administrative side as well. Next slide. And coming up to more recent times, we, with our new installation of our new president a handful of years ago, and going through a campus-wide strategic visioning process, we came to pull together this vision around the common good, of acting out for the common good. So we are the university for the common good, and humanity's needs are set our direction, shape our curricula, inspire our research, motivate our partnerships, and form our graduates. And again, it's more than just nice words. It really forms how we operate on campus. Next slide. And some of you might be familiar with the UN Sustainable Development Goals or the global goals. And I'm sure more than a few of you are familiar with the STARS reporting and tracking system through ASHE. And we use these two forms as our guideposts, as our benchmarks for how we're doing both on the academic side as well as on the operations side for how we make decisions, how we set our goals for how we're going to reduce our waste, improve our electricity use, as well as save our campus from unnecessary expenditures. So this is how these two sort of schemes are how we set our sights on where we're headed next. Next slide. And just a little history. Really, the point of this slide is to say this has been a long time coming. Our sustainable purchasing policy and actions, they come more deeply rooted in, most especially, a campus focus on human rights and social justice, signified by we were the first undergraduate campus to offer a program in human rights studies back in the late 90s. In the mid 2010s, around 2015, 2014, we started the Handling Sustainability Institute, divested from fossil fuels. A student-led campaign introduced the fair trade campaign to our campus, and we're now a fair trade university, all the way up to more recent awards through Office Depot and our leadership in greener purchasing, and a campus sustainability research award from ASHE on carbon neutrality life cycle cost analysis. Next slide. And when I talk about a campus culture, it really is a relationship building culture. And Sarah and I work closely together, but we also work closely with the Human Rights Center, the Sustainability Studies academic programs, dining services, as well as the community leadership centers, other student organizations interested in either human rights or sustainability topics, our campus ministry programs. We have an entrepreneurial group, business group, student-led business group, and it's hard to count how many times during a year, or even during a month, that there's some coordination happening between some number of these groups. Mm-hmm. Next slide. And I mentioned earlier on an earlier slide when there was 4 of us on, well, now you see a more representative sample from our Fair and Ethical Sourcing President's Working Group. And this was established, correct me if I'm wrong, Sarah, but I think in 2014, 2015. Mm-hmm. And this was arose out of a student initiative to bring kind of I guess the bottom line was to make sure that we're analyzing our purchasing practices so that we are not, say, purchasing products that are made with slave labor or other things that as a campus is focused on human rights and social justice issues that we did not want to be engaged in. But then it led from our university president's recommendation and calling forward this working group. We now meet several times a year, and it's amazing to me the breadth of representation on the committee, from the director of the bookstore, the director of dining, campus ministry, the Fair Trade Coalition, student representatives, as well as other student representatives, the Human Rights Center, the School of Business, procurement. That it not only represents this broad range of interests on campus, but also the sort of the demographics of campus, students, staff, faculty, from the vice president down to students, all sit on this committee. So it's a really collaborative atmosphere on campus. And so having these conversations on a regular basis, checking in, asking questions, really ensuring that we are not just using the words that are calling ourselves to be a fair trade university or to practice sustainable purchasing, but to actually do it and check each other and check ourselves and check each one of our units. Are we doing the best that we can be doing? Next slide. And I wanted to include this slide because I think it's really representative of what I was just saying. In this picture, on the left, holding the piece of paper, is our university president. And sitting next to him is the student who led the Fair Trade campaign to bring our university to Fair Trade University status. There's also the vice president of rector and mission in there in the photograph, as well as some other students, and the Human Rights Center advocacy director. And I think this really just kind of points to how we're both a top-down and a bottom-up university, and both are welcomed. And calling us all to living out this mission, to living out our vision for who we can be, the university for the common good. Next slide. So with that, I'll turn it over to Sarah and hear more about the nuts and bolts of our purchasing.
Okay, thanks, Leah. So Leah set up the framework of who we are, and I will go back and say thank you for giving us the chance to talk with you. We humbly accepted this invitation. We do not believe that we're the experts. And so, we humbly bring this simple message to you, but I'll just recap a few things about why this framework is working for us. And I'll recap from what, if you're taking notes, what you may have been scribbling on your notepad. So Leah talked about mission. that link to mission is really critical. You really, as a finance organization, so I, as a procurement director, report up through finance, I would not have the support or the bandwidth to be able to navigate all of the barriers I would come across if I didn't have the mission statement at the president level going down. So this is really, really important, and you can go out on our website and see a lot more detail than what we've shared here today about our mission. But as you all know, coming from other colleges and universities, sustainability is just a piece of your mission. And when you work in finance, procurement has to address all the different mission-related goals. And so it's really important that we have these relationships on campus so that when the rubber hits the road, and for purchasing, that means when you're spending money, that you get the right people at the table for each individual decision. And so as Leah talked about finding your allies on campus, I'm going to talk about, from a purchasing perspective, how those relationships manifest with our external partners. We have to set goals, but we have so many conflicting priorities, and sometimes, we have to reconcile those to be able to achieve all the goals at the same time. Like many of you, we use the STARS, HE STARS as our framework for metric reporting, but also the SDG indicators. And from the revised STARS, you can see clearly how the SDGs link back to STARS. So I'm going to just share some stories with you about the lessons that we've learned in my department. Next slide. So I'll just quickly restate from a mission standpoint. When I came into the university 4 years ago, we did not have a robust procurement organization. It was more paper pushing and just, hey, they were the gatekeepers, the financial stewards. And some people would have even said, don't go to purchasing, they're just gonna tell you no. So we really had to kind of change our culture, and we had to build capability at all levels. And the only reason I share this with you is because depending on the maturity of your purchasing organization, you may have to do some work on those bottom rungs of the pyramid before you have a license to succeed at the top tip of the pyramid, which is what I call procurement for the common good. This is the fun work that we do in purchasing, but you have to have a strong enough foundation below you to be able to succeed. And I've just defined for you some of what we call procurement for the common good. And in this block is where we see all of our sustainability goals. Next slide. So, Leah talked about those internal allies. As a director of procurement, we have to make sure that our partners outside understand that, yes, we want to develop supplier relationships of all suppliers that can meet our needs. However, our goals when it comes to sending out RFPs, when it comes to sending out RFQs, we really need vendors who are going to be able to be partners for us to achieve all of those goals. So some of these list out those external partners. The Dayton Area Chamber of Commerce is well aware that we are seeking supplier diversity and sustainability and fair supply chains, fair and ethical supply chains. And so we only talk to that kind of vendor. This could be as simple as a local restaurant who might be a minority business, but has some ethical issues. That would be a vendor that we would not allow in our system. And there's a whole, conversation you could have on that, right? The Ohio Minority Supplier Development Council helps us a lot with diversity and sustainability. OVR WEBEC is the Ohio Valley Regional's Women's Business Council out of our Urban League. And so these women businesses, we want those relationships. We also want them to understand our commitment to sustainability. And then the last little thing that I added here, for those of you who have Jagger, that snippet might look familiar to you. Our version of Jagger, every kind of college gets to pick their own name for their e-procurement tool. Some of you may not have an e-procurement tool. This is a major enabler for us to be able to track spend at the supplier level or at the item level. And it's like literally a software system that is just for buying and paying for stuff. But we run our RFXs, our RFQs, RFPs, whatever you have, request for whatever, through this system now, and we can indicate to people that that this is what's important to us. Next slide. Okay. So here are just a few things that happened. So early on, in terms of setting our goals and setting our policy, we did renew that in 2017, and then we updated our website with those goals along with the sustainability accomplishment. This is always a work in progress, and as we go for our platinum stars this coming year, we'll continue to make sure that we build this out and make sure that because what our problem can sometimes be is we have so many different departments that kind of own sustainability that we've got a lot of different websites with a lot of proud accomplishments. I know that's a good problem to have. I have a scorecard that I share with our board of trustees, and it includes common good metrics. So that's going to be local, small business, diverse, and green spend. And this year we're adding human rights. So I'm not sure exactly what it's going to be called, but it's new, and it's to measure our ethical supply chains. But I will say that this scorecard, which is effectively spend at this moment, it helps us because the more diversity, and this is my little plug for supplier diversity, the more diversity that you have on campus, the more robust your supply chains are. And I don't know if your schools had any trouble with PPE, technology, COVID testing, supply chains, but the University of Dayton, we had all business contingency plans already set up, and we were able to immediately meet the needs of campus using our sustainable suppliers, our diverse local suppliers, because we had already vetted those relationships and had built the duplicity into our system. Next slide. And I'll just say we're really proud of it because we were able to stand out in our city and be able to share our suppliers with our schools and even the Wright Pat Air Force Base here in town. Leah mentioned that we got recognized for Leadership in Greener Purchasing Award. This was, I know it seems like kind of silly, but this was one of the things I was really proud of because we were able to, we did work on planting trees in order to offset the paper that we had purchased, which is taking one step beyond what STARS expects. So STARS tells you you have to have recycled paper. Well, we did one step beyond that and worked with the Tree Up program to plant trees. We have used RFPs to help us in reducing our carbon footprint, and we are working right now on our current 150 vehicles to reduce the emissions of those vehicles. And then we spent time with suppliers, and I just gave you one example, but Steelcase, where we went to Grand Rapids to understand their sustainability capability, which is a massive center of expertise up there, and they helped us understand social life cycle assessment of a product, as well as how office design and furniture could link to employee and student health goals. So these are all maybe on the cusp of what of what we would call green purchasing, but these are all things that integrate to us in terms of building sustainable supply chains. It's not just that we're reducing the carbon footprint by sourcing food locally. It's that, that we have, that we are offering our students you know, green, like compostable packaging or reusable packaging. I mean, and that we, in our supply chains, that we're sourcing it from local farms that are fairly paying their employees. I mean, these are all factors that kind of play into the complex business of purchasing. Next slide. So with that, we just wanted to give you a few examples of what we do and give you time if you had a few questions for us. But here's our contact information should you want to reach out to us directly. And we both welcome any communication because it would be because we know we will learn from you. We're definitely on this journey, and like I said earlier, we appreciate the chance to share our story.
Thank you so much for that presentation. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen now. And we have a bunch of questions for you today. I haven't gotten a chance to look through them yet, but here's the first one. Question for Leah and Sarah. How do we learn more about going through the fair trade certification process?
So there is an organization, there's a couple of organizations, and I may get the exact names wrong, but one is like Fair Trade. If you did a search for Fair Trade University, that would come up with the same organization that we went through, our student groups and our campus went through. And I'm not remembering the name of the parent organization, but maybe it's Fair Trade Campaigns. And it's a process that involves forming a committee, ensuring that there's a certain percentage of your dining and other purchases on campus are fair trade. So you have offerings for fair trade coffee, chocolate, things like that can get you the right number of check boxes checked for the application process. But forming a committee is one of the key ones to help oversee or to kind of walk through the process and ensure that there's a regular check-in, that we're continuing to maintain that status.
For the entire purchasing program, did you set any milestones from that beginning? I know you mapped out the kind of the growth of the university in that way, but what milestones have you set to get to where you are today?
Well, so from a journey standpoint, we mapped out basically the largest spend categories, and we created a journey map over 5 years where we would tackle those largest spend categories in goods and services. So it started with a spend analytics report. And from a procurement standpoint, when you're a central procurement office, the thing you can influence the most are goods and services that touch more than one department, because you have a compelling reason to get involved, since there's usually more than one VP that has to make a decision. So early in the process, you're gonna come into like looking at, you know, office supplies or printing or computers, you know, things that everybody has to use, and then kind of migrating to other things. So I'd say some of the milestones, which is simply having the spend available, adding attributes to our system so that we could then track certain things that we needed, and we're continuing to develop that. That would have been a huge milestone, which happened in 2017. The next milestone was probably having that conversation, the policy discussion, and renewing all of our phrasing, and then the next year being able to get to our I'm sorry, Leah, we're at a gold stars level right now. Yeah, so we were really excited about that, and just having all of the stars requirements as part of our procurement focus areas. And so that would have been cleaning supplies, janitorial, office, particularly paper, and computers, hardware. And so that would have been the next big milestone. We then ended up working on basically the first two scopes of the carbon neutral, like carbon footprint. And so it was understanding what can we in procurement help to impact in those first two scopes of carbon when you calculate carbon for your campus. And you can tell I'm not an expert, but I can tell you that like our vehicle fuel emission was 1% of our carbon footprint. So we knew that was one thing that we could work on. Another thing that we assisted on in those two kind of big areas was getting a solar array sourced, along with there were just some other major infrastructure projects to try to move us along on our carbon journey. The next huge milestone for us is going to be taking into, I guess it's the third scope, which is going to be all about you know, things like things that you can't necessarily control with the university dollar, but you influence in the environment, like university travel, you know, employee travel, employee commutes, which, you know, last year we were trying to incentivize people with a new program through Enterprise called Commute with Enterprise. It's an amazing program. If you guys already use Enterprise, I highly recommend checking it out because it's no cost to the university, but it would allow especially if you have people who are commuting from a long distance, it's a really cool option for people who may not think that they have the ability to carpool or vanpool. So it happened that we were going to announce it the month that COVID hit. So we haven't announced it yet, but it will, once people come back to campus, I believe it's going to be a really big enabler, particularly because we're in a weird place in the Midwest. Like Dayton's not really, you know, a place people want to come and live, but they might live in, if they didn't grow up here, or they don't, you know, or they don't have family reasons to be here. So, you know, they might want to come in from Columbus or Cincinnati, and you can carpool in 50 minutes. And have this amazing, you know, Wi-Fi in your car and really low cost through this Enterprise commuting program. Hope that's on target.
That was a good map, and if people in the audience want to take a similar route, I hope you are taking those notes. All right, we are coming to the end of the hour here, so I'm gonna say some final announcements, but thank you again, Leah and Sarah, for that presentation.
You're welcome.
All right. If you enjoyed this, I hope you tune back in for the future webinars in our 2021 webinar series. You can see the topics here on the screen, and keep up to date. We'll be, if you're not on our email list, you will be after attending this webinar. So I hope you keep in touch with those updates that we're going to be sending out in the next month or so about the next one coming out in April, and then the next throughout the years. And also you can visit www.curc3r.org for past webinar recordings, and to see that active list of 2021 webinars. We want to thank Clean River Recycling Solutions for sponsoring today's program. Connect and collect with the new Lean Stream, an effective waste and recycling system that's high on impact and low on cost. Designed by Clean River's industry experts, the Lean Stream is versatile and compact with the same easy-to-use, high-quality functions and features of the more expensive waste stream products. The Lean Stream easily adapts to your campus needs, whether you're looking to start or supplement a recycling program. Recycling is smart for your campus, and the new Lean Stream makes it simple. Clean River Recycling Solutions has been a leading manufacturer of recycling bins for the past 30 years and has worked with NERC for a number of years as well. Creating less waste is their passion. Creating effective recycling bins and programs is their purpose. Their innovative, flexible, and customizable recycling products are constantly evolving with the industry to meet any environmental, programmatic, and legislative changes. Their bins are made from the highest possible recycled content and are specifically customized to collect and divert waste for any institutional, recreational, or business setting. That's highest possible recycled content for sustainable purchasing. Clean River Recycling Solutions is excited and passionate partner and excited to partner with you to create a robust and effective recycling program that encompasses sustainability and allows you to achieve your waste diversion goals. So if you want to learn more, you can visit that site on the bottom of your screen, www.cleanriver.com. Again, we want to thank the NERC for their support for this program today and partnering with us on this. And one last time, join me in thanking Lynn, Leah, and Sarah for their amazing presentations. If you learned as much as I did, we're very grateful to have you all. So look for their presentations and a recording of their program on the KERC website, www.curc3r.org, within the next day or so once that gets processed. And I hope you all have a good afternoon, and thank you so much for coming.